Moses, is he the author of the Pentateuch? Continued. We went through the introduction. I can read a couple of lines here. Most of so-called liberal theologians and commentators, along with not a few conservatives, have followed the theory that a number of unknown writers and editors, during the period of Israel's history from about the time of King Hezekiah to that of Ezra the scribe, compiled and edited several old legends and traditions, verbally transmitted not only by their own Israeli ancestors, but also by the Egyptians, Babylonians, and others into the book of Genesis, as well as the rest of the Pentateuch. The problem with that is there's so much in agreement, all these people from different walks of life and different periods of time. This is fiction, not history. Presumably, they then allowed the story to be circulated that these had come down from Moses in order to invest them with the authority of their great lawgiver. This is called the documentary hypothesis, which is absolutely uncorroborated, unsupported. We reviewed that and found there's absolutely nothing to this. And then we went to the internal evidence and found that the books themselves have written down, Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord in Exodus 24:4 and 7, and so on. We looked at the internal evidence supports Moses being the author. We have other documents, and the plausibility that Moses was capable of doing this work. And we have the other Old Testament books also indicate it was written by Moses. So a plethora of evidence. And we have the witness of the New Testament. And we have external evidence, Jewish tradition. We looked at that. Ecclesiasticus, the Talmud and the Mishnah, Philo, Flavius Josephus. And we looked at the early Christian tradition. We began with Genilius, an imperial official in the court of Justinian I, Byzantine emperor, held to the Mosaic authorship. And now we left off here. We begin now at Leontius of Byzantium, 6th century A.D. As for these 5 books, all bear witness that they are the work of Moses. Other church fathers, we have 5 key ones. They list Moses as the author. We have other evidence from the early church. The Pentateuch is described to Moses also in the following lists of the early church. They have their own canon idea. Dialogue of Timothy and Aquila, synopsis, the list of the apostolic canons, and Innocent I, Pope in 417 A.D. Moses is the author. Far more authenticatable than the liberal tradition, which has some kind of an imaginary group of people over ages conspiring to put up the idea that Moses is the author, although these are just things that were compiled by others. Now, answers to objections to Moses being the author. Very important, because this you'll hear as you share your faith. The style of Deuteronomy is too different from the other books of the Pentateuch that have been written by the same author. The alleged differences in style and the contradictions between Deuteronomy and the rest of the Pentateuch are mainly caused by their respective standpoints, if there are any contradictions. Leviticus, for example, is a codified law book, which the priests are to use, while Deuteronomy is made up of popular addresses. Therefore, we are not surprised to find that in Deuteronomy, Moses uses an oratorical style, edits, details, emphasis. He emphasizes practical issues, and often includes directions regarding the entrance of the Israelites into Canaan. The final stylistic point is emphasized by Manly. The same style can to some extent be perceived in some of the earlier speeches of Moses recorded in the Pentateuch. Now, your style is dictated by the purpose of the book. You can write a historical book and write a novel. Two different styles could be the same author. So the phrase beyond the Jordan in Deuteronomy indicates that the book was written in an area that Moses did not live in. So the phrase beyond the Jordan, objectors claim, refers only to the region east of the Jordan. It is contended that, since Deuteronomy claims to have been written in that region, beyond the Jordan could only refer to Canaan proper on the western side, then Moses could not have written it. However, it has been adequately demonstrated that this phrase was simply a technical term for that region, even as it was known as Perea, the other side land, during the New Testament times, and has more recently been known as Transjordania, even to its inhabitants. So, the phrase until this day indicates a great lapse of time, thus ruling out Moses as an author. In each instance of this phrase, until this day, it is highly appropriate that Moses used this phrase in light of only the previous 40-year period to indicate that a situation has persisted until these final days of his life. The account of Moses' death could not have been written by Moses, therefore Deuteronomy was not written by Moses. It is quite reasonable to assume that Joshua included this account, just as often an arbitrary obituary is added to the final work of a man of great letters. And it is worthy of note here that the other events of the book cover all of Moses' life and never transgress that limit. Smokescreens. Certain terms in Leviticus put the book's date after the time that Moses lived. It's another claim. But archaeology has recently provided us with two powerful supports for the early dating of the priestly writings. Kitchen, K.A. Kitchen, noted Egyptologist, describes the first find. Certain difficult expressions and passages in Leviticus could be solved only with the cuneiform data of the 18th to 15th century BC. These were archaic and obscure by the post-exilic period. And the Ras Shamra tablets, 1400 BC, which contain a large amount of Ugaritic literature, rendered the Wellhausen post-exilic concept void. So, many of the technical sacrificial terms of Leviticus were discovered in the far-removed Canaanite-speaking Ugarit. Look at these here. So these are not something that Moses wouldn't have known about and been able to write about. Archer is correct in concluding that these terms were already current in Palestine at the time of Moses and the conquest, and that the whole line of reasoning which made out the terminology of the Levitical cultists to be late is devoid of foundation. They're grasping at straws trying to prove their case. Objectors to Moses' authorship point to supposed differences in language and style and references to customs and cultures, which they maintain rule out Moses in favor of a number of other unknown authors. Henry Morris states in his book, The Genesis Record, adherents of this odd idea have attempted to justify it on the basis of supposed peculiarities of language and style, references to customs and cultures, and other internal evidences which seem to them to warrant this patchwork approach to the study of the book's compilation. More on this next time.